Welcome to Financial Reporting Conversations, brought to you by Basford Consulting.
We're here to make the unknowns and knowns of accounting, auditing and climate standards known, so you can avoid the blind-threading mistakes and do financial reporting better.
Each episode will unpack what the standards really say, what they mean in practice.
Whether you're a preparer, auditor, director or litigator, our aim is to help you get it right. Hello everyone and welcome back to Financial Reporting Conversations. Wayne, today let's talk about ASQM 1. Arguably, this is one of the most significant changes to audit quality in recent years. And you have been involved in reviewing how firms have implemented ASQM 1. And so I'm interested to hear about what you have seen in practice, what firms are doing well, what they're finding are challenging, and what lessons are starting to emerge. So Wayne, let's kick things off. What are the top 5 areas you believe firms are getting it wrong?
Thanks, Judith. Certainly, number one, they've just not taken ASQM 1 seriously. It's business as normal, nothing's changed, and that is a real mistake. 2, they treated ASQM 1 as a one-off exercise. We needed to implement ASQM 1, we created a manual, we did it. Mistake. ASQM 1 is continuous. ASQM 1 is an ongoing process. 3rd, and all related to this, it was a cut and paste exercise. They cut and paste boilerplate procedures, boilerplate risks, and they don't apply to their business. They don't apply to their practice. And 4, which relates to that, the core risk of audit quality, the risk register, they didn't tailor it properly. So they've got cut and paste boilerplate risk registers that don't link into the controls around preventing failures in audit quality. And still, in a number of firms, the industry, the firms are placing profit above quality. We want fees, we need fees, partners are driven by fees, and they're failing the requirements of ASQM 1.
Thanks, Wayne. So, sounds like there's some deficiencies around the ASQM 1 implementation. But where do you think firms should start if they are concerned about these deficiencies?
I think the bedrock of system of quality management, the bedrock of managing audit quality is your risk assessment. Get your risk assessment, your risk matrix right, and everything will flow on from that. But if you've not got the correct risk assessment process, it just doesn't work. And you can't have an effective system of quality management.
Right. So what type of risk are we talking about here?
Every risk, the whole principle, and this is something all listeners, all audit partners, all senior managers should say, well, what is ASQM 1 about? What is my system of quality management about? And it's the risk that you're going to issue the wrong audit opinion. It's the risk that you're going to do an audit and not apply the mandatory requirements of Australian auditing standards. It's the risk that you'll breach ethical standards, including independence. Those are the risks, and everybody should sit there and say, okay, what could go wrong? Why would I issue an audit opinion that's wrong? Why wouldn't I do an audit in accordance with auditing standards? Why might I breach ethics? That is a risk register, and it's fundamental to do that.
How should they go about refining this risk assessment?
Start with the end in mind. It is not a cut and paste, again, a rhetorical question for the audit partners, the heads of audit, for the senior managers. When they implemented ASQM 1, how involved were they in creating the risk register? When they read the risk register, does it make any sense at all? So, the starting point is go through the risk register, ask your audit partners to go through the risk register, ask your senior managers to go through the risk register and say, either are all the risks there? Do we actually understand what those risks say? And then go through a steady exercise of saying, there is the risk. What procedures have we got to address that risk? And This is a classic. I'm an internal auditor. All the auditors on this listening to this podcast should be aware of controls, risk control, risk control. Now, whenever I've sat down and done risk matrix, there is always this confusion about, no, that's not a control. That is just a form. That is just a policy. It is really this debate. Tell me the control that will prevent issuing the wrong audit opinion, or show me the control that will detect if I've issued the wrong audit opinion. And I look at these risk registers, and they were all copy and pasted. They were copy and pasted possibly from examples that the International Auditing Board created or examples that the institutes created, and they just don't match the real world. They don't match a practice.
So ASQM is all about identifying the key risks around audit quality. So what are the key risks? I think you've talked about some of them. Do you want to expand?
So the risk, big risk, we're going to issue the audit report. What is the main driver of that risk? The firm's leadership, individual partners put profit before quality. So your firm, we are there to make money. We are there to make more fees. We are there to increase the draw. That risk is the key one that has to be done. You know, what the component of a system of quality management starts with governance and leadership. And this risk register, what is the risk? We will put profit before quality. What is the risk that an individual partner will put profit before quality? What is the risk that we are not creating a quality culture? Those are the risks. Now, the trick for everybody on this call, and for when you're refining your ASQM1 or your SOCM, is what procedures have we got in place to address that risk? What procedures have we got in place to make sure we don't put profit above quality? What procedures have we got in place that the individual partner doesn't put profit before quality? And emphasizing it's a procedure. It is not a slogan. We have a slogan that we wrote into section 2 of our quality manual that says, we are committed to quality above profit. That is not a procedure that deals with that risk. And it's this type of thing. When people are listening to this, how are they aware? And this is everybody, from the seniors that will be listening to this or to the heads of audit that might be listening to this. How does their firm deal with the risk that an audit partner who's got a mortgage, school fees, all sorts of drains on their resources, is desperate to maximize their draw, is desperate to go up the partner ladder, and they're only being measured on recovery. They're told they need a certain fee base. Well, the risk is they're going to accept too many audits. The risk is they're going to accept risky audits. The risk is they're scared of losing an audit. So they're not going to issue the wrong opinion, or they're not going to issue the correct opinion. So, you know, once you come up with, you put profit before quality, your client acceptance is wrong. You accept any client you can. Your continuance is wrong because you're not going to get rid of clients because we need those fees. You realize the importance of those fees. I'm just not going to have enough staff. I can't afford to staff correctly. Therefore, I'm just going to be under-resourced on an audit. I'm not going to train my staff because I can't afford to train my staff. I want the cheapest staff training I can because I need to tick a box. I'm not going to use the likes of me and you because we that would cost fees, having to do consultation and ask these difficult questions. Well, that's going to hurt my recovery. So, it permeates. If you are focused on profit, all those other components of your SOCM are weak.
Yeah, so it sounds like the overall risk cascades to a lot of different risks within the firm. And what does a good ASQM risk assessment look like? Have you seen one?
What one should look like, and it has to be tailored for the firm, but it is, we have got all the components, governance and leadership, resources, client acceptance, ethics. The whole audit team has really gone through the risks. This is the risk that we're not creating culture. This is the risk that we're not training people. This is the risk that we're not monitoring properly. This is the risk that we breached independence. The response is precise. The response is, we have thought about it and this is how we will prevent it. And what I see too often is risk registers that, in all fairness, a lot of the risk registers I see, the risks are quite good because they've copied and pasted them from quite good risk registers. So the risks make sense. They're not tailored to a firm, but the responses are just cross-referenced into a manual nobody reads. So it's got to be, this is the procedure. This is how we're going to do it. And, this is part of the training. Everybody in the firm, I have to do this. And there's why do I have to do this? I don't need to do this. You need to be able to, the partners need to be able to say, this is why you do it. We do this to address that risk. And this living culture, it's all about creating a quality culture.
So where do you find firms tend to struggle more, identifying the risk or responding to them? From the sounds of it, it sounds more like responding to them in their own situation, like within the firm, the particular firm.
I am a qualified internal auditor amongst all other things. And for the last 30 years, auditors struggle to work out what is a control. And, this is a control. I've got a signature on something. Does having a signature on it prevent fraud, prevent it not balancing? We do a bank reconciliation every month. Well, is that the control to do a bank reconciliation? No, it's the fact that there are no reconciling items. So it's this nuance that auditors are not very good at working out what the control is. And when they go through these risk registers, they've just, I'm bored with this. I will just cross-reference it into a policy manual. It's somewhere in the policy manual that I may have copied and pasted from somewhere else. And it's missing the point. It's not effective. It's not doing anything. It is just a tick the box exercise.
Yeah, so it sounds like a lot of the firms are falling into this trap of just cross-referencing to a standardized template manual rather than tailoring it for their own.
In all fairness to ASQM1 and the firms, ASQM1 was a massive change that a lot of firms dealt with a bit too late. ASQM1, the principle of ASQM1 is its continuous improvement. It is the monitoring. You're supposed to monitor your quality. You see a problem, you see something that fell through your matrix, and you refine your matrix. It's supposed to be this continuous feedback loop. So I'm not sure it's that disastrous, but everybody on a regular basis, even if you think you had a really, really good risk matrix back in 2022, everybody should be looking at it and saying, does it need changing? Does it need updating? Have I opened new partners? Have I got into new lines? Is it dealing with this? So it's continuous improvement.
Dynamic nature of business and firms, and we just there are things that new risk that pops up. And I guess with the point about not everyone, it's a continuous improvement. So, I guess sounds like we weren't expecting all the firms to get it right the first time. And that...
My understanding, the major firms are correctly refining. It's refining they're looking at it and say, does that risk make sense? Does how we maps that risk make sense? So I know the larger firms are constantly doing it. Now, the thing that everybody on this call, the people, well, I'm still in business, I'm only here to make business. The audit profession is the ultimate capitalist system at the moment. Remember, ASIC are onto this. ASQM 1, it is a very, very useful tool for ASIC. If I was a regulator, forget that. If I was a global regulator, I've seen something I don't like. I've seen the wrong audit opinion. I've seen complaints about this. I've seen a collapse of a firm, or I've even seen a new auditor come in and they've done a prior year restatement on something a previous audit firm has signed off. Correctly, ASIC is saying, okay, well, that means somebody signed the wrong audit opinion. And you can do it one of two ways. You can say, okay, I'm just going to go after that individual engagement partner. They're a registered company auditor. I've reviewed their files and I'm not happy with that individual registered company auditor. The correct response is go after, question the competence of the individual auditor. But they are genuinely asking, how did your system of quality management let that happen? And when they're asking, how did your system of quality management let that happen? They're asking the head of audit, the ultimate or the managing partner of the entire firm, that when anything goes wrong, because an individual engagement partner's got it wrong, the way ASQM 1 works, the way your SOCM works, is your system of quality management has failed, and that means the head of audit's failed. And, the questions are, okay, this has happened, we're not happy with it. Why did it happen? And what are you doing about it? That's the new world. So when we see all the new ASIC are going to be more focused on audit quality, which fully supported is a really good thing. That means they are going to be asking lots and lots more questions about system of quality management. We're not happy with this file. How did you, head of audit, allow that to happen? So this is not going away.
And I think you've just sort of touched on my next question already, about leadership. How important is leadership buy-in when it comes to making ASQM 1 work? Obviously, the responsibility sits with leadership to make it work.
It is leadership. It is leadership. And without leadership, old people just demand, or young thrusting auditors just, we want profit, or we actually just want enough to survive. Leadership, governance is the point. We are committed to quality. We put quality above fees. We will create a quality culture. We will ensure we have enough staff. We will ensure we don't accept dodgy clients. We will ensure that we properly monitor our files. We create a system of quality. Now, you can see this, and people that's listening to this, well, are partners held responsible? Are staff held responsible? Is there anything in their REM models that say, I will give you a bonus if you satisfy these benchmarks for quality, or I'll fine you? You failed to do inspection. You failed this. I'm going to reduce your profits. You didn't attend training. I'm going to penalise you because you didn't attend training. Partners attend training, or as we see on some firms, bigger firms, partners get their grads to pass their training for them. What type of quality culture does that drive it? That's why these cheating in exams in big firms by senior people, it's just rotting from the top. We don't take quality seriously. And you go, well, you sit there in a firm. Does your firm take quality seriously? Does your firm have appraisal systems? Does your firm hold people accountable? Does the firm actually correctly monitor and review files? Or is it all about fees? How many people out there really don't wish their partners would get rid of that dodgy client? They've got a client that they know is problems. They really don't like the integrity of that client. The client is constantly pushing the boundaries. Quality culture gets rid of those clients. But where you have everybody knows, well, we just need the fees. It's a good fee. It's a 50 grand fee. It's a 100 grand fee. We can't, just put up with them. Taints the whole culture, the whole drive for quality.
If you're finding this discussion useful, please take a moment to click like, subscribe, and share. It helps others in the financial reporting community discover financial reporting conversations and keeps you up to date with every new episode. So Wayne, we've so far talked about risk, identifying risk, and the key risk being profit over quality, and how ASQM 1's meant to address, the firm is meant to, under ASQM 1, address and respond to those risks. And we've talked about the importance of leadership. In your reviews, I know you've done a lot of ASQM 1 reviews, what are the most common review points that you've raised that in your reviews?
Which level? Remember when I do reviews, and this is an ASQM 1 review, it is whether I'm dealing at file reviews or whether I'm dealing firm level reviews.
Both. Interested to hear. Too long, the list.
The root cause is, going back to the root cause, is people have not worked out why and how ASQM 1 worked. It's an exercise. We've got one. We did it. And the easy one for me is to say, go into that risk register and say, this risk register doesn't work. You've got all these risks. This is my risk of leadership and governance. This is my risk of client acceptance. This is my risk of resources. Each one of them, you go, it doesn't work. So we've all got, there is a risk my staff don't know what they're doing. Pretty good big risk and to get an audit wrong. And you get a response to that is, we monitor a CPD log. And you go, well, is that effective? Do you actually know what your staff need to know? Have they received the right training? The risk is they just don't understand AASB 15, or in your case, they don't understand AASB 9, they don't understand AASB 2. Have they ever been trained on it? And if they were trained on it, do you know they paid attention? So what goes wrong? And it, deep down, horribly, when I'm flicking between the file reviews, the reviewing of accounts, I go, well, I think, or you go, that I think that's a derivative liability. I think that's fixed for fixed. I think that is stage vesting on a share-based payment. I think that revenue recognition is completely and utterly wrong. Or I'm confused to see whether that revenue recognition satisfies the 5-step approach. Now, that's me reviewing it. Now, what went wrong? The staff, the partner, have not got the skill to to know whether it's fails the fix for fix, whether it's a graded vesting, whether that really isn't a performance obligation. And you go, well, have you got the procedures? When you come across something complicated, do you ask somebody like us? And they don't. How did you actually accept such a complicated audit? It is the Donald Rumsfeld. Well, I accepted because I never knew it was complicated. I thought, we just recognise revenue when we raise an invoice. They had an option valuation and it was called a convertible note, and obviously the part of it's equity and part of it's debt. You see that. Now, why did that go wrong? And does the firm put enough effort into its training? Does the firm just tick the box? Does the firm just, I rely on the institute's requirement and all my staff fill in a CPD log and I annually get a list and confirm that they've done 40 hours? And you go, do you actually know what training they did? And you look at the CPD logs, they did reading. 10 hours, what did they read? And, too many firms, okay, you have an appraisal system, because actually your manual says you have an appraisal system. So when somebody's done, obviously struggling and would like more training on this and like guidance on this because they've just got that one wrong, do you address it? Nothing. So, it's all too common. We live in a complicated world, but everybody who's auditing, there are very few simple audits out there these days.
Yeah, it's sometimes, I think a lot of people think a lot of things should be simple, and it comes to us and it's like not that simple.
Oh, you just mess everything up with all these financial instruments and these derivatives and embedded derivatives. The way you work out an effective interest rate, you just make life very, very complicated for the real people.
Yeah, so training is a key part of, but effective training, I think, checking that people understand it and not just, even if they've been trained, that they actually know how to identify the key risk and understand bits, teaching them to identify the bits that are difficult.
Goes all the way from the start of the process and the elements within the SOCM. If I've taught you, eventually, that is a really, really complicated thing. That is amazing and complicated. A number of audit partners would correctly say, well, if I'd have known that, I'd have never accepted the job. If I'd have known that, I'd have never continued the job. And, one of the pillars of your system of quality management is acceptance and continuance. But if you really don't know the problems you're going to take or experience when you take on that engagement, the training links into acceptance and continuance. When you then do engagement performance, do I know how to audit that? Have I got the resources to set out there that can identify the risk, that respond to that risk? Well, yeah, that's back to training.
One last topic I want to touch on was documentation. That sort of seems to be something that ASIC seems to be keep highlighting in their sort of annual inspections of audit files.
Documentation, and possibly before we go, we should just also talk about monitoring, and monitoring is quite tied into the SOCM. You're talking between a file level documentation and the system of quality management documentation. So ASA 230 and wonderful quotes from Doug Niven, former chief accountant at ASIC, is not documented, not done. So you look at these audit files and you go, okay, you're happy with the integrity of management. And that's why we accepted it. Where is anything on this file that says how you came to the conclusion that you're happy with the integrity of management and those charged with governance. You say that you're happy with the competence of the CFO. How do you know that? You say that you are happy that we've got a commitment to quality. The client's got a commitment to quality and has implemented an appropriate internal control. Where's any documentation as to doing that? In recent times, I've been reviewing quite a lot of caseware files, and caseware's got great checklist work programs that say clearly, please describe, narrate all these following items because they're mandatory in the auditing standards. And my frustration of recent times is all I see is completed. Completed. The work program says describe, explain. The auditing standard says describe, explain, document your evaluation, your conclusions, document key judgments. And you can clearly see, tick, God, I've got no idea what this is, but completed. So that's not documented. That's a key area of not documented. And going back to the ASQM 1, you've not got documented appraisals. You've not got documented what did the staff get trained on. And I've read, I read CPD logs, partners' CPD logs. There's a lot of reading involved in quite a lot of these CPD logs, and it doesn't actually say what they read. So what's been done? Oh, we have a CPD log. We monitor CPD logs. Good. Show me what that CPD log tells you and how that ensures quality. It's not documented. You're not driven through it. So that is documentation. And again, full sympathy with all the reports that ASIC might be putting out. It's, yes, I know I didn't document it, but I did it really. And in a lot of partners, and I might be guilty of this in the past as well, I can actually explain to you why I came to that conclusion. I can tell you, or used to be able to tell you all about the client and all about their history and all about their systems and all about the logic of why that number should agree to that number, and there's a relationship there, and if that number was wrong, I'd spot it by that number. But as reviewers have picked up on me in the past, well, it's not on the file, is it, Wayne?
Yep, not documented, not done. Yeah. Okay, so you're gonna wrap up to talk about monitoring and remediation. What are you seeing around that?
Monitoring is classic. So we have a monitoring system, and when you go, well, what have you seen? Nothing. Have you seen any prior? Have you seen any quality failures? Have you seen any? No. We monitor, and then you see, well, who's exactly been doing the monitoring? And then you ask more questions, and the classic then is, does the monitor know what to look for? How skilled is the monitor on financial instruments? How skilled is the monitor on IFRS 15? So would the monitor be able to pick up really bad errors on revenue recognition, really bad errors on share-based payments, etc.? And guess what? They can't. And because they don't know what they're looking for, they don't find out any problems. Now, what's the problem with that? Well, the monitor isn't skilled enough to do the file review. The other one, and it happens a lot in the smaller firms, Judith, you can come and review my file. I am in charge of your promotions. I am in charge of your bonus. So please come and do it. But I'm not going to intimidate you. Honest, Judith. I want you to tell me just how bad my documentation is, how bad my audit file is, how bad my CPD is. do you feel intimidated? And, that's the monitoring. So a lot of it is the monitor just isn't the right person to do the monitoring because they haven't got the skills, or they're too junior. And I most definitely, dealing with some of the firms I'm at and looking at the ASQM 1, unfortunately, the senior audit partners should very likely have their files reviewed independently by somebody like me who really doesn't care. But so, it should be, I'm confident of my files. I've got a culture of being improved. Do I pick the weakest inspector to give me a gold star and I've passed? Or do you challenge yourself and say, I'm willing to have a very rigorous file review. And if I, as head of audit, am willing to have that very vigorous file review, I expect all my partners to do it. So, but tone at the top, this is tone at the top. Why does monitoring not work? Tone at the top almost doesn't want monitoring to work. Don't tell me any more problems. I just want to pass it. Have we passed it? Have we ticked the box? Have we reviewed my file? And I've of course passed. It's culture.
Yeah, the tone, the leadership is committed to quality, committed to improvement if they're willing to go through that rigorous process.
I am a senior audit partner. I've sat on boards of my firms, etc. We are very busy people. We've got a business to run, we've got staff to manage, we've got clients to win, clients to look after. There's a lot of burden doing all of this. You've just added a whole new level of time in meetings, checking diagrams, checking this, that, and the other. And it's just, by the way, the better I do system of quality management, the better monitoring I do, the more work I've got. So there's a disincentive for the senior audit partners to do this right.
I mean, so that leads to remediation. The more work.
It's more work and more fees. So what's the remediation? You've got to do a root cause, and a lot. The easy one, for us is, well, the remediation. We'll just do more training,
more reading.
It needs to be put in context. How did we get to the point where we weren't training our staff well enough? The root cause is, why have we not been training our staff? And it flicks back. We've either been too tight with allocating budget to training, or we, leadership, have not taken training seriously. So, when you see something, yes, I do think they actually need to know the 5-step model, and I do think they need to know how to design procedures on the 5-step model. But the root cause is, well, why didn't we know that before? Why haven't we, WSB 15 has been in since 2018? Why has it taken us 6 years to conclude that we actually need to understand AASB 15? Why have we been accepting and continuing clients that have got complex revenue issues and we've not got the staff to do it? What's gone wrong in all those levels of our risk matrix? How did we accept this client? It should be not just, I need to train everybody on AASB 15. It's wonderful, interlinked.
Yeah, so that's very insightful as always, Wayne. So let's wrap this up now. So, we've started with this conversation about ASQM1, about not having a it's not just about having a template document. When it first came into place, everyone just sort of scrambled and got a boilerplate template document. But it's more about understanding your firm, as we talked about, identifying risk, responding to those risks, leadership, and how it's sort of implemented in practice. And we talked about documentation and the importance of monitoring and remediation. So that's hopefully this discussion has been insightful and provided some practical perspectives for our listeners, our viewers to take away. And we hope you join us again next time on Financial Reporting Conversations. Thank you.
Thanks, Judith. Thanks for listening to Financial Reporting Conversations. For guidance on applying accounting and auditing standards or to access our online training programs, please visit basfordconsulting.com.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with your colleagues and contacts. We'll see you next time, where we make the unknowns in financial reporting known.